My name is Mary Lee Shaker from Yorktown High School, Arlington, Virginia. And my question is, what is the expense of Reagan's trips to California or abroad? And what is the extent of his entourage of security, foreign and domestic?
Well, the measure of the expense of the president when he travels would be the cost of operating Air Force One, which is a little over $5,200 some odd dollars an hour. So if you measure that in terms of a flight, it does cost that amount per hour per destination. California, X amount of miles. Europe, other amounts of miles, by that measure of what the operating costs are. But I think the point that should be made is no matter if the president's on Air Force One, in a limousine here in Washington, on a helicopter, whatever, at his ranch, that he's always the president. He's always the commander-in-chief. The communications apparatus are there that essentially, aside from the cosmetics, he is still the president of the United States no matter where he goes. He's still in communication with world leaders as a response to the question of your colleague in the same high school. You never leave the presidency. You really don't. In his ranch, for example, we hear a lot of, say, criticism or questioning that he's out at his ranch as if he's having a vacation. We have the same communications capability at his ranch as he has here in Washington. We try to duplicate, but not in the form of sophistication that we can when you say in a hotel in Des Moines, Iowa. The President of the United States never leaves that office. It's not like the chairman of the board of some private corporation in the United States leaving the company, taking a 3-week sabbatical in some fantasy island. It doesn't happen. He's always the president. He's always on board. He's working the flow of cable traffic, telephone calls, pressures. It's always there.
That was Edward Hickey, a top aide to President Ronald Reagan. Edward Hickey was Director of Special Support Services and Director of the White House Military Office. The clip is from September 23, 1982, and Edward Hickey was answering a question from a student visiting the White House. Edward Hickey said that even when the president travels on vacation, he's still on the job. Close listeners to this podcast might remember Hotline editor Kirk Bado making that very same point. It was an episode a few months ago when we looked at presidents taking summer vacations. Well, time now for a podcast sequel. Time for presidents taking winter vacations, which means it's time to bring back Kirk Bado. And for the sequel, Kirk Bado is joined by a colleague from National Journal, Ledge King. Ledge is managing editor of National Journal Daily. Close listeners to this podcast will remember Ledge King from our frightening Halloween episode. Kirk Bado is a true political junkie. Ledge King is a true political junkie. And together, they are two true political junkies. We're thrilled to have them both back in the Extreme Mortman podcast, and even more thrilling still, with this episode, we're making American political media history. For the first time ever, Kirk Bado and Ledge King will be on the same podcast at the same time. Small print footnote, other than a National Journal podcast. And it's the perfect topic for both. The fascinating and until now terribly unexplored world of presidents and winter vacations. Where do presidents go on winter vacations? Are they more relaxing than summer vacations? And do they get work done? Welcome to C-SPAN's Extreme Mortman podcast, Kirk Bado and Ledge King.
Wow.
Yay!
Feel the excitement.
Howard, I could not be more honored to be here on Extreme Mortman making history with you.
I try to get away from Kirk, but apparently he keeps following me.
All right. Contain your excitement, both of you, please. All right. The first president we hear from, George H.W. Bush. First, an excerpt from the 2010 book by Ronald Kessler and the President's Secret Service, Behind the Scenes with Agents in the Line of Fire and the Presidents They Protect. Ronald Kessler writes, President Bush was so considerate of the agents who protected him that he would stay in town on Christmas Eve so agents could spend it with their families. Then he would fly to Texas the day after Christmas. So let's hear from President Bush. December 27, 1990, an exchange with reporters at the White House. President Bush is departing for Camp David.
We'll be back between now and New Year's?
I don't know. I would like to lay to rest one ugly rumor.
Are you bored?
That I'm bored to tears. I've never been happier in my life up there.
So what are you doing
My wife
here?
and Barbara and me, we sit by the fire. We have a wonderful time. Get on the long-distance phone, dial it up.
What are you doing?
So what are you
Running,
doing here then?
playing volleyball.
What did you get for Christmas?
We are 2-1, the Bush family against the Marines in volleyball. There's some news. Helen, 2 victories over only 1 defeat.
Well, listen, we should be worrying about war while you're having such a good time.
That's right. I'm not. Everybody should be having a little relaxed here at the
How
end
can
of
they
between
when there's a
Christmas
war
and the New
coming?
Year. Helen, don't be so gloomy. We'll see you. Thank you all.
What did you get for Christmas? What'd you get for Christmas?
Depends if I get bored up there. We'll see.
All right, Kirk, Bado, and Ledge King, the obvious question, what is volleyball?
Somebody that you play named Wally with?
Kirk?
I have no idea what volleyball is. I know H.W. Bush was like a legendary tennis player back in the day, so I got to imagine it's some early version of pickleball, perhaps, that you play inside. I'm venturing a guess here. I'm stabbing in the dark here.
Probably involves a ball and a guy named Wally. So.
All right, fair enough. All right, let's talk George H.W. Bush and winter vacations.
So I guess he had his estate in Kennebunkport, Maine, but that was mainly in the summer.
Right. It's tough to go up in winter in Maine.
I mean, you can if you're hardy.
Well, if you're hardy and you like darkness at 4:15, I can't do that up there.
Wait, Kirk, you're right. You have New England connections, right? Or
I do not have New England
I
connections.
thought you did. Okay, all
My
right.
dad used to work for Bush, though.
Oh, is that
Way
right?
back in the UN, back in '72. So
Say that. That's actually
back in 1972.
Yeah.
My dad was his press communications guy.
No kidding.
George H.W. Bush, yeah, and ended up writing his biography when he did well enough to matter in the '80 primary.
So you have special insight into George H.W. Bush's winter vacationing.
He never invited me anywhere that way. But yeah, but if you hear that his sort of lighthearted cadence, it sounds like a guy who is high approval, fairly high approval ratings, and then 2 weeks after that, he was, as Helen Thomas, the reporter who was on The Voice there, legendary UPI reporter, said, "You're about to go to war, Mr. President," and sure enough, within weeks they were in Kuwait for Operation Desert Storm.
Mm-hmm. And he's also, it's so funny, talking about what you said in the preamble there about he made sure to leave Washington after Christmas to allow the Secret Service agents to spend time with their family. And Ledge, you can probably attest to this more. H.W. Bush was a career Washington guy, and I don't mean that as a disservice here. He's someone who has been in and around public life for years, for decades, and he understands the machinations of all the logistics of getting presidents everywhere, the logistics of him just deciding even to go to a baseball game or something like that. Very, very mindful of that, very mindful of the civil servants, because that's what he saw all the staff around him, including the Secret Service, were, and wanted to try and pay that back a little bit by at least giving them some Christmas time with their families instead of getting them down to Camp David or down to the house in Texas or anything like that.
For a guy who sort of came out of the blue blood New England Ivy League elite circles that he did, he was incredibly, as Kirk points out, considerate of other people. He wrote many letters to folks. Mm-hmm. He cared about the people who worked for him, and he was sort of discarded at the end as someone who was unfeeling, or at least not very sensitive to the economic situations of Americans. But he was really, in fact, a down-to-earth, kind person.
And wasn't it H.W. and Barbara who had the legendary Christmas card list, too, where they would handwrite all those cards for all these different people, the members of Congress, their staffs, their spouses. They would, spend all this time and all these resources in doing handwritten Christmas cards every year. So maybe that's what they were doing at the White House while they were extremely bored, as he was saying to the reporters.
I know we don't want to dwell too much on H.W., but I also, and Kirk knows this, I have a card in my office, a New Year's Day card from the Bush family that was given to my father, and to my parents, and there's little George W. Bush and Jeb Bush and all the Bushes around. He was very much into family and holidays.
All right, next, President Bill Clinton, and we'll play 2 clips. The first is from April 3rd, 1995. President Clinton speaking at Arkansas State University, where he helped open a new library.
Introduction. I was profoundly pleased to know that a special part of this new library has been set aside for a Delta Studies Center. As has already been said, the The Delta region of our state has always had special meaning for me. When I was a boy coming home from college, I used to take a day of my Christmas vacation every year and just drive around in the Delta. I never saw a place that was so poor economically and so rich in spirit and people.
And the second Bill Clinton clip, November 15th, 1996, just over a week after he beat Bob Dole for re-election.
That all of us on the transition team, the Vice President and Mr. Panetta and Mr. Bowles and all the rest of us are working very hard. I have never worked any harder than I have in the days since the last election to make sure that we make the most of this transition. I need a little bit of vacation, and I hope those of you who are going with me will get a little one too.
All right, Ledge King and Kirk Bado. That was President Clinton after his re-election victory in 1996, going on a winter vacation.
Well, he usually went to two spots, skiing in Colorado, as we all do, right? Or sunning in the Virgin Islands, as we all do. So he was sort of, picked places where there was, I guess, money and attention and the stars, so to speak. But he also, and I checked it with the Clinton Library on this.
Wait, but you did research for the podcast.
Ledge is very prepared.
Well, all right.
I know. Don't worry. It's downhill after this.
All right.
But
Okay, this is your best
on
one.
his first, during his first 6 Christmas or holiday vacation schedules, he'd always end up in Hilton Head, South Carolina, around New Year's Eve. Do you know why?
Renaissance weekend.
Renaissance weekend. All the big think minds together, coming out with great ideas and things that probably never really took place, but nonetheless, they all got together and
An Ideas Festival.
The Ideas Festival,
Right.
exactly. So
He would play
kind of-
football on the beach, as I recall, or he would do like family touch football.
You mean like
games.
reliving the Kennedy mystique?
I think so, in a way. Yes, I think so.
Well, yeah. When he ended up in the Virgin Islands, there was other issues coming up later. But
The only thing that I want to add from that is what a great Clintonism there. I never saw a place that was so poor economically and so rich in spirit and people. What a great Clintonism there. That's the man from Hope there.
he felt their pain.
He felt their pain. Exactly.
Great. All right. Now, President George W. Bush. On December 31st, 2002, while on vacation in Crawford, Texas, President Bush stopped before lunch to speak with reporters. At his side, First Lady Laura Bush. Here's how the exchange with reporters began.
Hi, guys. Happy New Year to everybody. Laura and I wish all our fellow Americans a prosperous and peaceful and happy New Year. We are really happy to be spending New Year here in Crawford, Texas. And we'll be having our New Year's hamburger here in a minute.
And here's how President Bush's exchange with reporters ended.
It was right here in Crawford, Texas, where I had meaningful and good discussions with Jiang Zemin. Heck, it wasn't all that long ago that a U.S. leader never spoke to the Chinese leader. And right here in Crawford, we had a dialogue where we both committed ourselves to working in a way to convince Kim Jong-il that it's not in his country's interests to arm up with nuclear weapons. And I believe that can be resolved peacefully. Listen, thank you all. I'm thinking about a little nature walk in a couple of days. Anybody interested? About 4 miles. I know you're interested. Yes, Patsy, sorry. Matter of fact, it's an interesting question she asked. Did I keep last year's resolution to eat less cheeseburgers? And the answer is yes, to the extent that I'm now comfortable in having a cheeseburger today. Hope you all enjoying yourself here.
Happy New Year, everybody.
All right, for Bush 41, it was on Christmas, it was volleyball, and for Bush 43, it's cheeseburgers on New Year's. Your thoughts, Kirk Bado and or Ledge King?
It reminded me of the sort of the question that was asked when Bush ran, I think both times, W. Bush that is, who would you rather have a beer with? And it was W won that question, and W won both elections. So I think he very much enjoyed the cheeseburger, beer
nuclear missile talks.
Well, yeah,
he can seamlessly code switch in between those. It's wonderful.
Let Dick Cheney handle those things.
Of course,
complicated matters. He had cheeseburgers with the people, or hamburgers in this case. I guess he didn't like cheese.
Well, is that like you guys have all your New Year's traditions? Do you also have a hamburger on New Year's Day as well? Or some sort of pork
while I'm playing volleyball.
While you're playing volleyball, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And it goes to the point here that the job of president never stops, because even while he's answering this question, he's talking about hosting diplomatic talks with the foreign leaders at his ranch down in Crawford. And we talked about this on the last vacation episode about how these presidential vacations and taking some of the business of being president outside of the formal trappings of the White House and putting it in more casual vacation spots is a way to, endear a little bit more, humanize them. Thank you. Humanize them and take out some of the pressure you have of being in the Oval Office in a more casual setting, a warmer setting, and try to do some diplomacy that way.
Yeah.
I will point out, Christmas in the Extreme Mortman family, I take all the little Extreme Mortmans out for Chinese food.
That's extremely interesting.
I know, okay. Next up, Barack Obama. President Obama began a December 20th, 2013 press conference at the White House this way.
Good afternoon, everybody. I know you are all eager to skip town and spend some time with your families. Not surprisingly, I am too. But you know what they say, it's the most wonderful press conference of the year right now.
And another moment from President Obama's December 2013 press conference.
So, the end of the year is always a good time to reflect and see what can you do better next year. That's how I intend to approach it. I'm sure that I will have even better ideas after a couple of days of sleep and sun.
Ledge King and Kirk Bado.
Well, Barack Obama would go split time between Washington and Hawaii at Christmas time, which is a wonderful, wonderful place to vacation there. He had that beautiful compound up in Hawaii. But again, the business of president doesn't stop here. He doesn't have the same election year burdens that he would the year previously in 2013, but he had a whole lot of recovery efforts going on. We're coming out of the Great Recession here too. He was criticized pretty heavily while he was in office for taking vacations up to Martha's Vineyard while the recession was going on here. This might have been the first one where he can relax a little bit more, get some R&R on the beach, maybe not do any, what was it that Kerry got in trouble with, criticizing kiteboarding, or was it windsurfing or anything like that?
Yeah, or volleyball. One of
You're really on the volleyball thing.
Well, no, it wasn't windsurfing. It was like, it was
like kites.
Yeah, it was something that I wouldn't
It
try.
was some rich person's sport that I've never tried.
Well, that's right, exactly.
So, actually, I want to ask you this, in all seriousness, you keep pointing out, Kirk, you have before, we've done this episode, these are, can you call these taxpayer-funded vacations? I mean, are they vacations? They're taxpayer-funded, or is
I think
too loaded?
Let me jump in. I think it depends on what side of the aisle you're on. If it's your guy that's on a trip, then it's a working vacation. He's always on. He's
many meetings.
Phone calls with leaders. If it's the other guy, it's a boondoggle, taxpayer expended. In fact, let me throw a couple things at you.
You come prepared.
One time he did go to Hawaii, where his roots were, apparently not Kenya. He rented a house in Oahu for 1 year for $3,500 a day. So that kind of got the angst of people from the other side. And Judicial Watch estimated that it cost $3.7 million just to fly the Obama family from D.C. to Honolulu. Now, I haven't seen Tom Fitton report on any of the Trump trips, but maybe that's coming. So, Hawaii was important to Obama, not just because it was a nice place to go in winter, but Michelle Obama once said, you can't really understand Barack until you understand Hawaii, which was maybe a way to justify spending $3,500 a day on a house. But there's something there, right?
Right. And it's really interesting, too, when you think about, like, when you try to total up the number of vacation days presidents take. You know, I was trying to do a little research on this, and there's so many different metrics about what publication or what source you look at counts a vacation day. You know, if you asked President Trump in the first term how many vacation days he took, he'll tell you it was goose egg. He was working the entire time. But if you ask the AP, during the first term, he took about 378 vacation days or so. So a little bit of a difference there. So it's a difference of what do you consider vacation here. And I also think that, and I was wondering if you two had any thoughts on this, that ever since the pandemic, do we look at vacations differently? He's working from home here. You know, it's not like Trump, even when he's down at Mar-a-Lago, that he pauses the work of government. I mean, just this past week here, he had to respond to the National Guardsman shooting just downtown from where we're sitting here in the C-SPAN offices while he was down at Mar-a-Lago. The business of being president doesn't stop no matter where you're taking the call from. And I think past presidents in times of crisis would cut vacation short to be back here. They would make a big show out of getting here, getting into the Oval Office, having the trappings of the presidency around them. And I do wonder that maybe the changes in mores with the pandemic have altered our perception here, but that's still a very powerful signifier of the president's taking this seriously. Look, he's coming back from Bedminster. Look, he's coming back from Hawaii. He's coming back from Martha's Vineyard or something like that. That's a symbol of it's about to hit the fan.
Yeah, I mean, Ted Cruz in Cancun.
Exactly.
Or Marion Barry and wherever he went. You know, I mean, things like that. It's all about optics. Of course, the president is always the president, no matter what where the president is, but it's how people feel about how committed he is when a crisis hits, and if he's seen as detached or uncaring, that's probably worse than if FEMA doesn't show up at your door in time.
This is the very reason we have Ledge King on this podcast, because you're totally right. The Marion Barry example, he went down to the Caribbean, but what's the kicker to this is that at the time, I believe it was 1983, I think, D.C. was a huge snowstorm. Right. So like the town was paralyzed, and talk about unfortunate optics, but he was on vacation in the Caribbean, and he doesn't come back, and he gets hammered, Washington Post editorials and others, for not being here on site, and he comes back and the town can't move because we're covered in snow. I think it was early 80s.
Something like that, yeah. It may have been more than once too, but and to Kirk's point about the golfing thing, I mean, Trump hammered Obama about spending all this time golfing and all that stuff, and well, we have a president who owns a few golf courses and I think uses them.
Correct, and he's unashamedly like going out there and bragging about his winning club championships. He does diplomacy on the golf course. It's all working all the time. Again, it comes back to me thinking about that during the first term, Trump would rarely have public appearances before noon, but yet his White House schedule would say that he was having executive time in the morning. And when reporters would ask whoever the White House press secretary was at the time, whether it was Sean Spicer or Sarah Huckabee Sanders, it would be he's taking many meetings, many calls. He's fulfilling his presidential duties right now. Now, this time around, we don't have the same executive time, but we do have that same sort of links diplomacy that Trump is using.
Links diplomacy. All right. Well, speaking of Donald Trump, now Donald Trump himself will return to President Trump's first administration on December 24th, 2019 in Mar-a-Lago. President Trump led a video teleconference with members of the military.
Hello, everyone, and I want to wish you an amazing Christmas and Happy New Year. You're tremendous warriors, and we appreciate it so much. We're in Florida right now, speaking to you through this technological advance that's been made. That's been incredible what they've been able to do over the last number of years. Incredible. We'll be talking to you in a little while.
President Trump got this question from Marine Brigadier General David Odom, stationed in Camp Shoreb, Helmand Province, Afghanistan.
Sir, our real question for you today is how are you going to spend your holiday here in the coming today, tomorrow, and hopefully into the weekend, sir?
Well, I'm at a place called Mar-a-Lago. We call it the Southern White House because I really pretty much work. That's what I like to do, is work. And we've made a lot of progress. We've done some things over the last few days that were incredible, having to do with trade. As you know, we're now getting along very well with China and trade. In fact, they just took tariffs off more than 800 products where they were charging us tariffs, and now those tariffs are gone.
All right, I want to go to Kirk Bado first because there's a couple of things happening in these two clips that you have talked about. It's very, he's talking to the troops. You've mentioned that in the contemporary, this current year and Thanksgiving. Obviously, tariffs he's talking about. And then technological, he's talking in a video conference. You mentioned the COVID and the Zoom, and there it is,
Well,
2019.
it's funny hearing him talk about this. What is this, Christmas 2019? Yeah. By this time, there was already disease spreading in the Wuhan region of China. He's probably getting briefed on this already, and a few months later, our world would fundamentally change. So it's almost like when he's talking about the wonders of modern Zoom technology. It's like, buddy, just you wait. You have no idea what's coming here. And the whole time I'm listening to that clip, in our house, the Steve Martin Pink Panther movies are pretty big. My mom loves those movies. And there's a line in there where he goes, "We're going to find the criminal using the latest technology, such as two-way radio and email." It's like that's what he's talking about with the Zoom here. But one of the things that presidents have done a lot of times when they're on vacation here is use this time, especially around the holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas holiday, is to show their sympathy and empathy for the folks who aren't able to get home, and they'll do these troop calls or they'll visit bases. Vice President J.D. Vance spent, I believe, the day before Thanksgiving this year at Fort Campbell in Kentucky, which just so happens to be right across the border from where there's a special election later today. But politics is politics. Not sorry to date the podcast here, but that's one of the ways that presidents are able to, again, to Ledge's point, have those optics that they are working here right now, is doing these calls with the troops, whether it's a video call or or a landline. They're able to show that they are still the commander-in-chief. They're still fulfilling their duties, even if they're out away from the White House.
Ledge?
So Trump made an interesting description calling Mar-a-Lago the southern White House. I think he's used that quite a bit, and he likes it. I'd like to make the case that he's made the White House the northern Mar-a-Lago.
Oh,
flagpoles, gold, a huge ballroom.
Well, then, don't forget the Rose Garden Club now, the terrace.
Yeah. I mean, why even go down to Mar-a-Lago? You've got it right here.
Weather's a little bit better in Palm Beach than here.
A little bit better, exactly. But
so you are a political historian in addition to being a political junkie and reporter. So the Western White House. What was the Western White House?
When Reagan was
Nixon. Was it Reagan or Nixon?
Well, I thought Reagan. It's whatever they want to call it. Yeah, but Reagan had one in Santa Barbara.
Right.
And you sort of opened the show with a clip from, I guess, Ted Hickey, talking about how the president's always the president. Well, back in '82, I'm going to go back to the beginning here. Back in '82, Reagan, it was very important for Reagan to be on the ranch, showing how he was, cutting brush down, because he had just survived a very dangerous assassination attempt. Mm-hmm. And he wanted to show the country how vigorous he still was, how in control he was. And so he was able to use that prop of his ranch to make a much more fundamental point about his stamina and his worthiness to be president.
W did as well with the ranch down in Crawford.
Did as well, that's right.
Mm-hmm. And all these examples we've done, I may be getting this wrong, but they've all gone to warm weather climates.
It's funny how that happens.
When you
can afford to,
Yeah, when you can afford taxpayer-funded.
Exactly. Yeah.
Jerry Ford went to Vail to ski. Do I have that right?
Ford was a, and this is my colleague Tom DeFrank, who covered Ford every year and kept in touch with him for many, many years afterwards. Yeah, wrote a great book about how many things Ford, and one of them is that he was an avid skier, and when he lost that ability to ski, it really kind of was precipitated a decline of sorts. But yeah, he skied quite a bit. I mean, many of them do.
Yeah. Okay. And now our final clip. President Joe Biden, December 28th, 2021, Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. No dialogue in this clip, just the tranquil, soothing background sounds of Joe Biden, Jill Biden, their German Shepherd commander, the surf, and the White House press corps.
Mr. President.
Yeah. Move up.
Ready? He's going to talk to us.
Is he coming out?
All right, President Biden at Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, December 28th, 2021. Kirk, Bado, and Ledge King, go have it.
That was a wonderful moment of Zen, and I'm surprised that during our Rehoboth Beach ASMR, we didn't get interrupted by a Secret Service member yelling, "Ouch!" because commanders over there, this history of biting agents there.
Let me throw a plug in to the one voice you heard on that clip, the press.
Yeah.
While the presidents can go on vacation, there's always a press pool following along, and those people. I did Easter for Trump in 2018, so not Christmas. But you have reporters, and I know nobody cares about the press really, but they have to deploy all these people, and they have to go wherever the president is, just like the Secret Service, and they're giving up their time to be with somebody who doesn't necessarily want to talk to them. You hear the shouted question. So, vacations affect a lot of people. It's not just the president at the heart, but it's a whole sort of ecosystem of reporters and security who all have to kind of go wherever the president is at that moment.
All right, I want to go a little bit further into that. You've covered how many presidents on vacations, or how many of those trips?
I mean, mainly Congress, but I've been around for, I don't know. I mean, I came to Washington at the end of the Clinton term. So
is it fun for a reporter to follow a president or top official on vacation?
It depends on your,
definition of fun.
The definition of fun. It depends on whether you have a spouse that's okay with it, or family that's okay with it. There's an excitement to being in the jet stream of a president, but it's also tiring. Luckily, I didn't have to do it a whole lot, but. It can get both tedious, and it can also get a bit tense, because you're there to, especially in the pool, you have to make sure that everything is covered and written about, and if there's something that happens, you have to you can't really relax until a lid is called, which in layman's terms mean that no more events for the president, and you can go get a beer somewhere.
Les, do you know which president took the longest presidential vacation?
Is this a trick question?
This is not a trick question. This is trivia for you.
One of the earlier ones?
One of the earlier ones, 19th century.
Okay.
Taking our readers back, I think this was the first one you covered, actually.
Millard Fillmore.
It was not. If Millard Fillmore took this long a vacation, it might be his whole presidency. It was James Madison took the longest vacation. He took about 4 months off from June 1816 to October 1816 on a Western tour that was chopped up to a vacation.
Well, he just didn't have email, that's all.
I'm just thinking about how much fun you would have had following along in the press pool of James Madison on a 4-month tour across the western states.
We would have played some volleyball.
All right, before we have a bonus clip, but first, Kirk, Bado, and Ledge King, tell our listeners what you do, where you do it, and how people can continue to consume your content.
I'm the managing editor at National Journal Daily. We cover the Hill and the White House and all things Washington, policy-wise, I'd like to think. So you can get us at nationaljournal.com, and please subscribe to us.
Yep. I'm here with my lovely colleague, Ledge King. Ledge does the Hill and White House team, and I cover campaigns over at Hotline. We're still doing the twice daily campaign newsletter that's heating up now as we finish up with the last special election of the year later today, and then shifting more into midterm coverage, especially after we get back from our holiday vacation at the end of the year here. And you can find us on Twitter at National Journal Hotline and online at nationaljournal.com. I'm the picture right under Ledge on the masthead.
Well,
don't read too much into that.
Will either of you disclose where you are going on your winter vacations before we play our bonus clip?
My wife hasn't told me where we're going. Okay. We are going to be saddled with a couple of dogs, so that limits our mobility. But if we do, I'd go back maybe to my hometown of New York.
Oh, very good.
We're a big winter vacation family. It's the only time that all of us, it's me, my mom, dad, and 2 younger siblings get together. And we are actually taking a page from the current vice president's book. We are going to Disney World actually for Christmas this year. Happiest time of year, most crowded time of year down there. But we've been doing that the last few years, and it's really fun. We've moved around a lot growing up, so it's one of the constants in there has been those Disney vacations. So it's really nice when we go there and it feels, I know this sounds very Disney adultish, but it feels like the closest to home because we're all there, we're all very present, and we all just love hanging out and being down there together.
Well, that's beautiful.
Can I come?
Can I come?
We'll adopt you on the next one.
Okay.
Nothing says teacup ride like Kirk Bado. I'm just, and now a bonus clip. We've covered presidents taking summer vacations. In this sequel, we covered presidents taking winter vacations. By now, no doubt you're wondering, how about a White House vacation trilogy? How about the obvious third installment? Vacations taken by vice presidents. Well, wonder no more. October 5th, 1988, the vice presidential debate. Brett Hume, then with ABC News, asks this question of Dan Quayle.
Senator, can you identify any work of literature or art or even a film that you have seen or read or experienced in any way in the last 2 years that has had a particularly strong effect on you, and tell us why?
In the last 6 months, I think there are 3 very important books that I read that have had an impact. The 3 books are: 1, Richard Nixon's victory in 1999, Senator Richard Lugar's Letters to the Next President, Bob Massey's Nicholas and Alexandra, which deals with the fall of the Russian Empire and the coming of Leninism in 1917. Those 3 books, which I read over the last spring vacation and early summer, had a very definite impact.
All right, Ledge King and Kirk Bado, any thoughts on how Vice President Quayle spent his spring vacation and early summer vacation?
I'm not sure, but when I heard him talk about Richard Nixon winning in 1999, I thought, well, that he could have thought that. But it turns out there is a book that Nixon wrote, right, about 1999. He wrote it. He died in 1994, so unable to be on the ballot. Well, I guess he could have been on the ballot, but no, that was an interesting clip. That's about all I can say about that.
I did love you, Ledge. I think you'll appreciate this. How Dan Quayle, a man of the Senate, quickly corrected himself when he was talking about Senator Richard Lugar. He made sure to say it again, but say, "Oh, Senator Richard Lugar, the esteemed gentleman over there." But you know what? Knocking out 3 books like that—that's a good vacation right there. I've already started to pick out my Christmas vacation reading,
and they are
American Canto, obviously. I actually picked up Graham Greene's book, Our Man in Havana, yesterday. That I love Graham Greene, but never have read Our Man in Havana, so I have that squirreled away right now, out of reach, so I can save that for when we're not publishing Hotline, and I can really drill down into that. And I'm also reading the Wolves of K Street right now, which I plan on saving the back half of that for when I get down to Florida with my family. In between the teacups and Space Mountain, I'll be reading Wolves of K Street.
Final thoughts on that, listener, Ledge King?
I'm reading a biography of Grant by Ron Chernow, which is terrific, fascinating. Grant to me is, and I don't know where he vacationed, but one of the most fascinating figures in American history, and many ups and downs, and sort of an undersold president whose legacy is sort of getting a reboot these days.
Part of his legacy is living on today.
What's that?
President's Vacation in Martha's Vineyard. He was actually the first president to frequent Martha's Vineyard and popularize that. So that's a little bow to end on there, Ledge.
Oh, my goodness. Wow, that's great. Now I need a trivia question to promote this episode. And I'm going to just flat out steal that from
So he probably knew Martha.
He pointed to the original Martha.
Martha Washington's Vineyard. That's right. All right. So before we let you go, so you guys would be up in 2026 to do a Vice President's Vacation podcast?
I mean, I know that people are thirsty.
Yeah, I know.
I'll do that. Well, also, we could do the Easter vacations and get Ledge's firsthand accounts here of the pool duty with Trump.
Yeah. Well.
All right. Ledge King and Kirk Bado, thank you for joining us on this very special, family-oriented Extreme Mortman podcast.